Next question. We have R equals F over N plus F. The website uses the formula above to calculate a seller's rating R based on the number of favorable reviews F and unfavorable reviews N. Which of the following expresses the number of favorable reviews in terms of the other variables? So we want to basically represent F equals something. So we want to isolate F. All right, usually it's a pretty easy situation, but this time we have F appearing in two different places, which is going to make it a little bit trickier. So the first step is we want to rewrite it nice and neat the way that it should be written, with the denominator completely on the bottom and with parentheses. So now we would want to take this denominator and move it to go here, right? Because we know that it's a factor, and factors get moved diagonally across an equal sign. Now we distribute the R, so we get Rn plus Rf equals F. And here comes the important part. We want to group all the F terms onto the same side of the equation. So we subtract Rf, and we get Rn equals F minus Rf. And at this point, we can factor out the F, and we're left with 1 minus R. Okay, now, as you notice, F is only appearing in one spot. So we've effectively fixed the problem of having two F's in our equation. So now we could just divide by the 1 minus R, or equivalently, we could consider moving this diagonally across the equal sign. Either way, we'll get rid of it. And we end up with F equals Rn over 1 minus R. Answer choice B. Next, what is the sum of all values of m that satisfy this equation? So our first step is going to be to factor out a 2, which is in common factor for all three terms. So we get m squared minus 8m plus 4 equals 0. Then we could divide by 2 on both sides, effectively canceling out the 2. Next, we'd factor this using a trinomial factoring approach. So we have same negative, and the numbers are either going to be 2 and 2 or 4 and 1. Right, 1 and 4, 2 and 2. So we're seeing now that this is not factorable, which means that we expect, right, because neither of these combine to 8, so we'll have to change our approach and try perhaps doing a we can eliminate those because we know it's going to be sort of a irrational number. And we could try a quadratic equation approach. So we can use a equals 1, coefficient here, b is equal to negative 8, and c is equal to 4. So our equation is x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So negative b will be 8 plus or minus square root b squared will be 64 minus 4 times 1 times 4 all over 2 times 1. So that's 8 plus or minus square root of 64 minus 16. So that would be 64 minus 16 all over 2. Now we just have to compute that result. So 64 minus 16, you can take away 20, add 4. So take away 20, you get to 44, add 4, you get to 48. And at this point, it might be wise to see if we can simplify 48 into two radicals. And for example, we could do 16 and 3, which is equal to 4 radical 3. So let's make that change now. We'll do this as 4 radical 3. Then we can realize that 2 is a common denominator. So we could actually divide each separately by 2. Okay, and then we have 8 over 2, which is 4, plus or minus, and 4 over 2 is 2, so 2 rad 3. We have 4 plus or minus 2 rad 3. Right, so we have 4 plus 2 rad 3, and we have 4 minus 2 rad 3. Those are our two solutions. And if we want to find the sum of those values, what we do is just add these together. So we end up with 8, because this will cancel out. So actually, the answer is D. Now, you might be wondering if there's a shortcut, and actually it turns out there is. So since they're asking about the sum of values of m that satisfy this situation, as opposed to the actual roots, what we can do is to use our sum formula. So the sum is equal to negative b over a, right? So once we got our a, b, and c, we can just put negative b, so negative of negative 8 is 8, over a, which is 1. So the sum is just going to be 8. So using that, we would have gotten it right away once we had our a, b, and c. Next, a radioactive substance decays at an annual rate of 13%. Okay, so we're going to do a 13% decrease. If the initial amount of the substance is 325 grams, which of the following models this situation? Okay, we know the initial amount should be appearing here. Okay, so we're going to cross out these two. And then what we expect to see is the multiplier. Multiplier raised up to the number of years. So all we have to do is find the multiplier for a 13% decrease. And the way to do that is you start with 100% and you decrease it by 13%. That will give you 87%. Then you just have to turn this into a decimal by moving the decimal place twice to the left. So that gives you 0.87 as your multiplier. So we can identify choice A as the correct answer because we're taking the initial amount, we are multiplying it by 0.87 t times, where t is the number of years. So if, for example, we're doing 5 years, then it would be 0.87 5 times because we're going to decrease that thing 5 times. Okay? Question 15. The expression this is equivalent to which of the following? Okay, so this one actually involves a very difficult concept which is called partial fraction decomposition. And that is actually quite a difficult concept, so the best way to do this perhaps is to look at the choices, right? So first of all, this one is just 3 over 3, which is 1, and it doesn't seem that this would cancel out to be equal to 1, so we can rule out choice A. Same thing goes for choice B. There's no x involved. This is something that you might get if you sort of cancel these out or something. Well, actually that would be choice A, but again, there's no reason to think that the x is going to disappear somehow. So these are sort of more promising. So the best way to combine these is to get a common denominator. And the way that I like to do this is with cross multiplication. So this is a binomial, so we'll put it in parentheses. So we'll first do this cross multiply part. So that's 5 times x plus 3, which I'll actually write out separately like this. Then I put the minus symbol, which is in between here. And then I do the other cross multiply. 2 times 1 is 2. And then I divide by the product of the denominators, which happens to be x plus 3. Okay. So now I'm going to distribute the 5. I get 5x plus 15 minus 2 over x plus 3. And now I just combine the plus 15 with the minus 2, and that gives me a plus 13. And so this is my result. I'm going to compare that to the original. And it's close, but not quite. And actually, if you do it with choice D, you'll notice that it actually will come out correct, because we'll have 5x plus 15 minus 17 all over x plus 3, and the plus 15 and minus 17 will make a minus 2. So yes, that comes out correct.